Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain on PlayStation 1. Vampire fiction was, for most of the 20th century, rooted strongly against the background of the real world. But after the success of The Lord of the Rings, first published in the mid-20th century and becoming extremely popular in the 1960s, other authors began to blend genres, especially with the changing social norms. Authors like Michael Moorcock began to spin tales of a darker fantasy, where death and rivers of blood are common, and in time Anne Rice and Neil Gaiman began to tell unnerving fantasy stories from the point of view of those traditionally considered monsters, painting them more in a sympathetic and intelligent light. As video games were growing in complexity, especially in storytelling, dark fantasy soon entered the hobby. In 1996, developer Silicon Knights published a game for a mature consumer while the market was still grappling with the idea of what mature content exactly was. That game was Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain. The story revolves around a morally ambiguous nobleman named Kain, who's murdered by bandits while traveling through one of the villages in the game world of Nosgoth. His soul condemned to hell, Kain is set to writhe in eternal torment when a powerful necromancer offers his spirit a deal. Work for him, and he will bring back a much more powerful Kain so that he can avenge himself. Of course, what the necromancer does not tell Kain is that he will come back as a vampire. So when Kain returns and stumbles out of his tomb, drunk with power, slaying and drinking the blood of his killers, he does not think much of it. But once his bloodlust is sated, he now faces eternity as a creature of the night, and just a puppet of a godlike sorcerer. Kain, not being the kind of guy to whom servitude comes easy or sits well with, becomes enraged at his new plight, and travels the land seeking a cure for his undead condition. In doing so, he discovers there is a much larger conspiracy afoot involving the Pillars of Nosgoth and the Circle of Nine, sorcerers intimately tied to magic and the very land of Nosgoth itself. Before Kain even arrived to meet his fate, someone did the impossible and killed the woman who was the pillar of balance and kept the rest of them in check, and already Nosgoth is falling apart, with the remaining circle going mad. Kain concludes the only way to save Nosgoth is to kill the rest of the circle before they do even more damage. Along the way he meets a new vampire ally that gives him the, shall we say, biased truth as to the unwritten history of the world, in a time when vampires ruled as gods. Blood Omen was a game written from the point of view of the anti-hero, which was not a common thematic video game choice at the time. Vampire fiction, epic fantasy fiction, and Shakespearean tragedy were blended to create a somewhat unsung epic of the PlayStation 1 era. And the choice of gameplay was not a common choice as well. Top-down isometric action RPG for a home console, something that might have fit more well on the PC. Unlikely bedfellows, but it worked. But one of the key factors to the success of the game was Kain's voice actor, Simon Templeman, whom in his own resonant British tones delivers a sweeping line that ranging from rage to deadpan humor to low brooding menace like no other. If you were to envision a vampire in real life, his would be the voice you would hear before you died. I have stated before that I am not normally a fan of vampires or vampire fiction. I find them to be overplayed and have lost their edge, especially in the recent decades, even with attempts by various authors and creators trying to bring them back around to their true, frightening roots, much like the fate that befell zombie fiction. But Kain's tale is simply so well done that it is easy to overlook whatever misgivings players may have had over things like control schemes or visuals. The game's atmosphere, music, and delivery makes players want to progress the plot and assist Kain on his ever-twisting path of revenge. For my money, Blood Omen's story is far better than most vampire games, including the likes of the sainted Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Blood Omen does do one more thing that was considered extremely uncommon in the day, so spoilers ahead. At the game's end, you are presented with two endings: to sacrifice yourself for the good of Nosgoth, or to claim power for yourself. The true canon ending is in fact the bad ending. Kain was a wicked man in life, and his transition to undeath has not softened his philosophy. He becomes a new god, bringing a new age of vampiric rule and allowing Nosgoth to rot. This is dark fantasy, after all. Happy endings are non-existent. Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, is a sterling example and historic marker in the evolution of video games from child's toy to something that adults can enjoy as well, which still stands as a masterclass in video game writing, long before games like The Witcher 3 or The Last of Us were believed to have taken that mantle. It cleared a path for the dark fantasy genre to come to consoles, for both good and ill. This opening chapter in Kain's long tale of revenge and vampirism, at least, doesn't suck. But I can't say the same for the rest. Thank you for listening.